Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be taking a look at the new Grimdark paint set from Dark Arts and Two Thin Coats. I'm going to be painting up some miniatures using only these paints, and stay tuned to the end of this video as I think my conclusion may shock you. I'm Nate the Feral Painter and welcome to the video. So a while ago, Ollie from Blackheart Minis reached out to me with a Grimdark challenge, and this challenge was to use this paint set and paint up a miniature using only these paints, which is something a little bit different to my usual content where I'm using such things as like oils and enamel. So with this video, it was a nice little challenge to push myself and only use these acrylic paints. So what is the box set? So this is a box set that contains 30 paints, and it includes 21 acrylic paints with 3 metallic paints and 6 inks. So opening up the box itself, we'll just dive in and I'll give you my thoughts and tell you what comes with everything. I really liked the box itself. You know, it's got some nice fancy art on it and everything's packed inside really nice. Now you will notice in this video, I do believe that when they sent these out, I did get included a couple of little extras like special effects paints. I'm not sure 100% if they do come with the actual box set itself. These were just some additional little extras that I used in the video. But overall, the box set does consist of 30 different colours like I've mentioned, and these are all tones that push more into the Grimdark style. Now with that, obviously it's more like desaturated paints, more like desaturated colours. Even though there are some nice vibrant colours in here, overall everything feels a little bit more dark and dingy, and it leans a little bit into the Zorn palette style of painting. So the main acrylic colours themselves do consist of a wide variety of different colours, from greens, red, flesh tones, like your bleachy colours, and some other unique colours in there as well. Now I did particularly like a lot of these colours, and some of these will be definitely going straight into my repertoire, which I'll be using on my everyday projects, such as the flesh colours. I really enjoyed the flesh colours, especially where you can, you know, start off with those like darkish, desaturated pinkish tones and build them up to more like a grimdark, bleachish, washed out skin. So it's quite fun to experiment with those. I did like the reds as well, especially the darker red. This is probably one of my newest favorite red colors, because I typically tend to use AK burnt red, and I always have to mix a little bit of black in there if I want it a little bit darker, and this one was perfect. So this is just one straight out of the bottle. There's some nice greens in there as well. They're more like a khaki green more rather than like a saturated green, and each one of them has got more like a lighter tone, such as like the flesh colors and the bleach tones, and even the greens, which push more into like a desaturated effects. But you could also use alternatively these for like a necrotic flesh. So let's say if you wanted more of a necrotic flesh, you could use like one of the brighter greens and mix that in with some of the flesh. Also, there are some oranges in there with some yellows, and I liked those desaturated yellows as well. I can see where a lot of these would come into use. And then obviously in there as well, you do get a black and a white. Now the black, it is more of a cooler black. It's not dead on black. It's got like a little bit of a blue tint to it, which is really nice because you can mix in some white in there and start to build up some interesting tones, and including some other brighter colors. It's a really nice dark black that you can use within your painting if you don't want something that's more like a solid black as well. Now the white, there is a new white in here as well. It is a really nice white. It's a little bit, it does require a couple of coats when putting that on, and still, I'm going to be honest, my favorite white is the Pro Acryl Bold Titanium White. Moving over to the metallics, and I did particularly enjoy these, especially the old brown metal, and this is because I like my metallics to look a little bit old and worn and a little bit rusted, which is why the very first you saw me testing these through an airbrush with the brown just to lay like a foundation down, and this means that when I dry brush over them, that brown will show through a little bit, suggesting some dirt, grime or even rust. And they do go through an airbrush. Really find these paints, you just require a tiny little bit of thinner just to improve that flow. But with my metallics, I've got a ton of them, but I always like mine to push more into that browner spectrum, and the old brown metal was perfect for that. And this one's probably going to be one of my new favorite metallic paints that I'll be using in the future, and it just offers something a little bit different and a slightly different tone. Moving over now to the inks that are included in the box, and there are 6 different inks with a wide variety of different tones. But this is where I got really shocked with this kit, because I'm not a big fan of using acrylic washes on my miniatures, like like your Nun oils and your Agrax Earthshade. I tend to use them more as like filters through my airbrush, just because of the way that they go on, and I don't like how they pool and leave marks behind. And also they tend to dry a little bit more like satin or glossy, depending on what brand that you use. But I really did enjoy using these inks. This is because they are really strong on their own, so you can use them for a wide variety of other effects. But with these, you can actually, I just use water. They did include or send with mine some of the Spirit medium, which helped thin it down. I think it's more like a glaze medium, but I just thin down mine down with water. You can thin them right down, and I tended to use these more of a wash, rather than like filters and stuff. But these, I really enjoy doing it this way, because one, they don't dry that like satiny gloss, and they tend to go down more into like that matte satiny side, which is the more how I want to push my things into. And also you can mix these as well, especially for like flesh tones and stuff. I find myself mixing some of the warmer tones and the redder inks in there as well. I didn't get a chance to test out the white ink, but I'm sure in some future projects I'll definitely be using them as well, because they are really smooth and they do go on and they thin down really nice as well. Now, I know this is going to be a bit more of like a shorter review where I've just talked about the paints and everything like that, because I really want to, focus on the conclusion part of this video and give my exact thoughts on these paints and, paint sets like these. Now, this is obviously just my opinion. A lot of you may completely disagree with what I'm going to say, but this is based on me and what I think are these things. And, you might get these and think they're wonderful and it's all you want to use. Now, typically, like I said at the beginning of the video, I paint in a completely different style using like oils, enamels and things like that, if you've seen some of my tutorials on my channel. However, obviously the core of them, there is a lot of acrylic work as well. And this is sort of where I don't really have a problem with these sets. People can release and do whatever they like, but one thing that I've started to notice in the last couple of years is a lot of people and a lot of companies are now saying, oh, it's Grimdark and it's a Grimdark set. You get this set and you can paint just in the Grimdark style, and all these paints are just exclusively for the Grimdark style. And that's sort of true, but not true at the same time. So I know these sets come with all these like beautiful colours and stuff. Now I find that there's some colours in here that I don't tend to use, or I might only dip in and out to now and again. And this is the problem now that I have with sets like these. Basically, all they are is just desaturated colours, and colours that are just normally available on the market. You can go to a ton of different ranges, paint ranges, and find similar, or if not, exact colour matches to paints that tend to come along in these new sets that everywhere that are popping up. And there's nothing stopping you. Let's say rather than go out and buy 30 different colours, you could walk into a shop, go to your favourite paint range and pick up 10 different colours that are in this spectrum, and maybe save yourself a little bit of money. You don't need to go out and buy a Grimdark set to be able to paint Grimdark. You just need to be more like mindful when it comes to your colour choices and your colour selection. Now, with all that said, that's not to say that these are bad paints. If anything, these are actually really, really good paints. You know, they flow smooth, they operate exactly how I like to paint, especially when I'm building up acrylic layers because of that two thin coats. You know, they do go on fine. You can get these, you know, like a really nice opaque finish with just one coat, but I like to thin mine a little bit and just start to build up layers, you know, when I go into like the mottling and the scratching and all that sort of stuff. So they're really good for that as well, and they don't dry too matte like some brands out there. So if anything, it's not to say that these are bad paints at all, it's just the, you know, the principles and the ethos around the whole Grimdark style that I tend to have a completely different opinion on, and that's fine. You might have a completely different opinion to me. And recently I had, especially the last year or so, I have Duncan Rhodes' paints, these two thin coats paints, are probably some of my favourite acrylic paints to use. And what I've started doing over the last year or so is slowly start to replace all my paints with the two thin coats range, and that's just because of the way that they operate and the way that they're just reliable. I know what I'm getting straight out of the bottle, and that's not to say that these are bad paints. They are fantastic paints, they operate really good, but you know, that's my thoughts on them, and they are absolutely fantastic. And I can't, you know, if you're getting into painting and you say you've never bought any paints before, this is a great place to start because you've got a bit of everything that you need in there. And you know, please don't think that this is a bad review or anything. This is just more of like a little opinion sort of thing that I wanted to mention in it. And maybe, you know, you've painted like the Games Workshop Envy Metal style, and you want to start to dip your toes into the Grimdark style. Now, just because you're using different paints, it doesn't necessarily mean that your miniatures are gonna look grim dark. You know, if you follow me on my channel and the work that we do over at the Grimdark Compendium, you'll know that there's a whole other side to the Grimdark style, which is like the philosophy, the look, the feel, and how everything comes together. Now, for me, you know, I paint a bit more like the realistic style, so that's why I like the dirt and grime. And for me, if someone said to me, you know, I've been thinking about I want to get into the Grimdark style, and I've been looking at this paint set, would you recommend it? Yeah, of course I'd recommend these acrylic paints, they're really good. But what I would do is say, you know what, maybe start to look into some alternative ways of painting, like using oils and enamels, the reductive technique, and look at some of the crazy stuff that we do over at the Grimdark Compendium, such as the glue technique. And now I know this is not for everybody. You know, some people just like to get the paints out on a night, do a little bit of painting and whatever they want to do, and that's completely fine. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just giving my opinion overall. So in conclusion, yes, these paints are absolutely fantastic, and I hope and I do probably presume that in the future they may retail these bottles separately, or maybe include like a number 2 set with the, you know, like a second edition paint set. And now, what do I think to this Grimdark set compared to some of the other Grimdark sets that are out there on the market? Now, again, there's other companies that are releasing more Grimdark sets and adding some additions to them. You know, at what point do you stop? At what point do you need 50 Grimdark colours? You know, it goes back to the whole thing of, you know, what it is, what you're painting, and what it is that you need. And generally, like with me, I can generally just mix paints with what I've got. But it'd be nice to see some of these paints sold separately, especially some of the metallics and also some of the inks, especially that tobacco one. That's a really nice one, and I can't wait to find some more areas to use that within my Grimdark painting. So I hope this video has been a little bit of an insight to you and these paints, and yes, I would absolutely recommend them. And if you are interested in this set, there is an affiliate link below where you can click on and grab this set for yourself, and it would also help me out as a channel in the future as well, so I can keep bringing you these like type of reviews and everything like that. And if you do want to see these more in action, if you want a dedicated video to the models that you've seen in this video, I have filmed that content. If you want a little tutorial on that, or maybe a bit more of a deeper dive on how to use these with the inks and how to mix them and stuff, just let me know in the comments section below, because I'm sure I'll be posting a lot more content around, you know, using these paints or incorporating these paints into my future painting projects. Also, in the link in the description below, if you do like the Grimdark style and want to really dive into it with some of the products that I've previously spoke about, there's also some links to the Grimdark Compendium, and that is the home and the hub where we do all our weird and wonderful work, and there's a lot of projects over there as well, and it's the best way that you can also support me by going over and checking out some of their exclusive content and deals and offers that they currently have on there as well. With all that said, I'd just like to thank the guys that sent me this set, and really thank you for choosing me and allowing me to paint with them and fetch these videos to the wider world. And I've been Nate the Feral Painter, and as always, I will catch you in the next video.